Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Fiorentini.
And I'm Wajahat.
And this is America Unhinged. Indeed, it is. We are tracking the first 100 days of the Trump presidency, the Trump regime, the God Emperor, the Sun King himself. Waj, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Actually, you know what? I feel like I'm on that planet in Interstellar where like each minute lasts 10 hours. This is only day 4, Francesca. And I feel like that lady from Titanic, it was 84 years ago. But we're going to get you through it. On today's show, we have some nice breaking news. We're going to start with some good news. Real quick, a conservative judge has temporarily blocked Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship, at least for 14 days. But before we get into that, on today's show, we're going to talk about Trump's attacks on immigrants, Trump's attacks on the transgender community, Dems being feckless, doing the work of Republicans with the Laken Riley Act. But first, before we jump into that, Donald Trump is really focused on the important things, Francesca, right?
Sure, of course. Yeah, in fact, he was interviewed by Sean Hannity, and he was trying to talk about, why his attack on migrants is very, very valiant, even though he released 1,500 criminals who, participated in a violent insurrection on January 6th. Hannity, good on Hannity. I mean, does Hannity ever get enough credit? Hannity's trying to actually change the subject and talk about, what apparently voters voted on, the economy. Take a look at what he says.
They wanted to take care of, yeah, but Sean, they wanted to, I don't care.
I don't care. You hear that, everybody? If there are MAGA watching, the economy, I want to talk about the economy. I don't care. Now, watch. That's definitely as much of an FU to the American public as it is an FU to Sean Hannity. Let's be real. That felt more personal.
It was like I don't care. I own you. And to give credit to Shannity. It's
Shannity now.
It's to give credit to him. He's a reek of Donald, but in that interview, for those who saw it, he struggled. I mean, he tried. His face was contorting, but like, surely attack on police officers were bad. But please, let's talk about the economy. And Donald was like, nah, I don't care. It's Festivus every single day now for the next 4 years. And this Festivus, this airing of grievances, isn't it against violent insurrectionists, Francesca? Oh, no. He's going after the immigrants. And you and me are proud children of the immigrants. I have the beige skin. I am Zeteo's latest DEI hire. And this, folks, this attack is so egregious, so shameless, so unconstitutional that he wants to end birthright citizenship. But today, some good news. Before we get to that, we want to talk about, if you remember in the 70s, Donald and his father, they got in trouble because they wanted to keep out those tenants who could be trouble. Speaking about those people who could be trouble, Donald knows. Check this out, another clip.
Open borders with people pouring in, some of whom, I won't get into it, but you can look at them and you can say, could be trouble, could be trouble.
I wonder how you can tell, Waj, that an immigrant would be trouble. If you could just look at them. What is that?
I think if they are of the brownish hue, there's a chart. It's that Family Guy chart. Sure. If you're of the lightest wheatish complexion, as we say in South Asia, the milky complexion, you are safe. But if you get down to a caramel mocha like me, I think there's some trouble.
As comedian Sammy Obeid says, it really depends on what season it is when we get profiled and how dark we get. But yes, that sort of set the stage for really what has been happening in the last few days as Trump rolls out some of these. And I hate the phrase crackdown because it sort of plays into the idea that there is a problem with immigration. Rather, these are draconian policies that are meant to racially profile. And so that is writ large his approach. And that's the approach of the Trump administration, is simply, if you can tell by looking at him, never mind today, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey said that during an ICE raid, an American citizen was swept up in that raid, an American citizen who's also a vet. So, Waj, I wonder what part of the Family Guy meme shade he was. So
I think he's the part that could be trouble, the part of the brownish hue. But there is some good news here, and we kind of mentioned it very briefly in the beginning. A judge, folks, this is a Reagan-appointed judge, 83 years old, about to turn 84, conservative to the core. He said, Quote, I've been on the bench for over 4 decades. I can't remember another case where the question presented is as clear as this one is. This is a blatantly unconstitutional order. Then he asked the DOJ lawyer, Brett Shumati, in your opinion, is this executive order constitutional? He asked. Said Shumati, it absolutely is. And he replied, frankly, I have difficulty understanding how a member of the bar could state unequivocally that this is a constitutional order. It just boggles my mind. And by the way, Francesca, if you don't know, I am a retired attorney, still licensed in the state of California. And even I know, Francesca, even though I haven't practiced in 13 years, that is blatantly unconstitutional. And not only unconstitutional, I want to remind folks, it's important because on the campaign trail, Donald Trump sold this as he would go after the undocumented and only the undocumented, right? The birthright order, however, since he has become president, it's not just against the undocumented folks. Future children born to undocumented immigrants would no longer be treated as citizens. And this extends to children of some mothers in the country legally, but temporarily, such as foreign students, tourists, or H-1B visas. So you immigrants in the Bay Area, you South Asians who voted for Donald, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of groups of immigrants and people who are Latino or African American, I mean, you know, Black American, like they're just, every single group is kind of like, oh crap, like this is getting real fast, right? There was, you know, the Cuban American community who has largely enjoyed sort of a separate status, you know, given that Cuba is a communist country, and, you know, there's sort of the what is it, the like wet feet policy or the dry feet? I forgot exactly the policy it was, but effectively, if you make it to the United States, you can have a pathway to citizenship if you're Cuban. And now you see that, you know, the extension of of Biden's basically immigration policy to Cubans and to Venezuelans, where they can have a 2-year asylum if they know somebody in the United States. All those programs have been nixed. And so I think some Cuban Americans are like, oh, damn, this is also coming from my community, as I think, you know, we all are seeing. This is effectively what he promised to do, Waj. Yeah. And so I think the real question for me is, look, this order is amazing. It's great. But it also blocks this going forward, the executive order from going forward for 14 days. So it's 2 weeks of reprieve. To me, the real question is, well, what happens if the president simply ignores the Constitution?
That's right.
I mean, he aided and abetted insurrectionists, which you're not supposed to do according to the Constitution, and then run for office. You're not supposed to hold office if you do that. He's ignored that, as has the highest court in the land. So, okay. Like, I mean, I think we really have to prep our brains and our fight around this idea that, yeah, no, okay, he's just going to pretend that the parts of the Constitution that he doesn't like don't exist.
And not just that, Francesca, it's that he has a Supreme Court, which is packed with right-wing conservative activists in black robes who in the summer gave him, yes, it was the president, but it was him, quote, absolute immunity for actions done within the core functions of the executive branch, right? Which means essentially you get a get out of jail free card. And that get out of jail free card, we just saw it for the violent insurrectionists who, by the way, as of today, he's going to invite some of them, folks, to the White House. The same people who smeared poo-poo, last time I said a bad word and Francesca caught me, in the Capitol, the same people who beat, who gouged, who wounded 140 Capitol Hill police officers, the same people, some of them who came with weapons to assassinate Mike Pence, the Republican vice president. These people now are hailed as heroes. We can't do anything about it. Right-wing media is promoting them, right? So I agree with you. I think people need to like just buckle up, folks, because all those institutions and those guardrails that you thought would hold, well, the dude who's a criminal convict who was found liable for sexually assaulting a woman is back in the White House and doing this executive order that an 83-year-old Reagan-appointed conservative judge says is blatantly unconstitutional, and they don't care. And I think there's another recurring theme, Francesca, that you're touching upon, is the people who voted for Donald Trump, right? He said all this, right? He promised all this. But they were like, that Chris Rock bit, he ain't talking about me.
Right.
He ain't talking about me. He's
Yeah,
talking
no,
about. Go ahead.
it's coming for all of us, tarde o temprano, as they say. And I want to get into actually more specifics of what else has been, in the sort of menu and wish list of anti-immigrant legislation. There's also obviously the wall. Don't forget about the wall. More personnel along the southern border. Obviously, that's in addition to or under the rubric of a national emergency, which he declared at the border. Increased detention capacity and ending catch and release and closing CBP1, which was an app which had a lot of problems, a lot of tracking, but it effectively did shut down, as we talked about on Tuesday, a lot of the border crossings because it scheduled asylum seekers or migrants with an appointment with Customs and Border Patrol. So they would wait in Mexico for their appointment, sometimes for months. And I want to just go to this clip of a man from Venezuela, so arguably a country that, Marco Rubio and the other hawks say is communist. And yet, what about all the refugees seeking asylum here in the United States? Nah, they don't care about them. Here he is finding out that his CBP1 app has been, his appointment has been canceled. And I just want to say, we actually are, there is not audio translation, but effectively he says, I've been waiting, I'm not crossing illegally, and you can read what else he says.
Claro, es que por tratarse las cosas bien, como le digo, tengo 9 meses aquí en Ciudad Juárez, nunca intenté cruzarme el muro, nunca intenté volarme, a pesar de que muchos amigos migrantes, vámonos, que tú pasas con tu familia, que tú estás con tus niños, tú pasas. Y yo no, yo voy a esperar mi cita, yo hago mis cosas bien, para que al final de cuentas todo el esfuerzo y todo el tiempo, todo lo que hice, toda mi travesía, lo que arriesgué a mis hijos, sea para nada. Prácticamente me siento derrotado, triste. Pero bueno, sin palabras, no sé ni qué más decir.
He says, I'm without words and everything that I risked for my children. I've been waiting in Mexico for 9 months. I wanted to do things right. And everyone said, no, let's just go. Let's cross the border. And I want everyone to understand, and this is what I've said a lot, and that deterrence does not work. That the United States' approach to immigration, by militarizing the border, by making it even more dangerous to cross, by building a wall, all of that will not cut down on immigration. Instead, what the United States and CBP specifically are trying to do is be as violent, as awful as the very gangs, as the very governments, as the very things that allegedly are terrible and we're supposed to be fighting, as they are. So MS-13, we're going to do one better than MS-13. And who's caught in the middle? Civilians who are simply looking for survival.
Francesca, when I was an attorney, practicing attorney, what I actually did was immigration law. And my clients were people who were trying to come to this country and make the claim for asylum, withholding of removal, right? Convention Against Torture. That's what I used to do. And I used to be like the last Hail Mary pass, appealing to the courts to keep them in, right? These are people who were literally trying to come through this country, right? It's not illegal to apply for asylum. You sit there and you go, I'm applying for asylum. It is a process. It takes time. It takes money. These people are stressed, right? They report themselves in at the border and then they go through a process. It takes anywhere for like 2 years, sometimes longer, Francesca, right? And it's very hard to get asylum or withholding of removal, right? These people, some of them are escaping persecution, right? They need to come to America. The beacon, right? The Statue of Liberty. Wasn't the Statue of Liberty welcoming everyone? Oh yeah, those who of the wheatish complexion, right? And so I'm glad you found that clip and played that clip, because I think it's important to humanize this community that has been so dehumanized, referred to as aliens and criminals. No, folks, overwhelming majority of them are just people looking for a better life. That's it. And they're the ones that Donald is going after. But meanwhile, the violent insurrectionists who beat up police officers, patriots, freedom fighters, heroes.
And also, by the way, as a little preview, we will be looking at Waj coming face to face with one of those insurrectionists who's been since released on a little Piers Morgan segment later on. So stay tuned for that. Before we leave this, Waj, we ended last show talking about the bishop in DC who had that beautiful plea to the Trump family to think of all the people like the ones who are being targeted by Trump's anti-immigration policies. Think of them and their fear. Okay, well, not only are we going to smear her name, but of course, part of this administration and their crackdown, their draconian anti-immigrant policies is about rescinding the ability for sorry, is this the right? Sorry, no graphic, but rescinding and trying to actually search churches and rescinding their safe haven status. Because a lot of times churches are a last place where many migrants will seek some refuge. There's like incredible organizations that do good work, like housing them and feeding them, especially folks who are like crossing the border. No longer are those churches, schools, and courthouses safe. That is the graphic, by the way. So in many districts, educators have sought to reassure immigrant parents that schools are safe places for their kids, despite the president's campaign pledge to carry out mass deportations. But fears intensified for some when the Trump administration announced Tuesday it will allow federal immigration agencies to make arrests at schools, churches, and hospitals, ending a decades-old policy.
There's a Francesca. We have a nice comment from Carlos Cantian. Thanks for watching, Carlos. The gentleman in that clip, he did everything right, and he still got screwed by the system. Aren't we better than this? Apparently we aren't, Carlos. Apparently we aren't.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know people who have done it the right way, and that right way was 15 years. 15 years of not being able to see their family, 15 years of missing weddings and births, and their sisters and mothers being on the in the United States while they had to be in Mexico. And finally, yes, it was the right way, but it doesn't make any sense, and it certainly doesn't make sense for the economy, as many farm workers are not even, showing up to the fields because they're afraid of ICE raids, to say nothing of, the meat processing plants and so many industries that rely on immigrant labor. We have to turn to the pushback, Waj, because we talk about this judge, but the judge who, is put a hold on that birthright citizenship, but there's also pushback on these ICE raids. So that's obviously not just coming from organizations and people on the ground, but 22 attorneys general, police departments, surprisingly. So the Las Vegas Police Department said they're not going to stop, question, or detain or arrest or anyone purely based on immigration status. Chicago also following suit.
My town, nice.
Omaha Police Department, California, and Stockton, and on. And you're seeing that from Mayor Brandon Johnson in Chicago and J.B. Pritzker, also of Illinois, saying, I think J.B. Pritzker said something like, if you want to come for my people, you come through me.
But you know what? So first, respect to the people pushing back, respect to the attorneys general, respect to some of these mayors, respect to California, our home state, which is enduring a lot, but people are doing the right things. But I do want to talk about some of the folks who should be fighting, but aren't. And I want your take on this, Francesca. You just heard from that Venezuelan immigrant who did everything right. There's people who come here, no one's perfect, but some people make mistakes, but a lot of folks who do crimes, petty crimes, nonviolent crimes, shoplifting, surely they should not be punished, right? Just someone who's here waiting, doesn't have the documents and papers. If they made a mistake and they shoplifted, surely they're not the same type of trouble. I don't know, as a violent insurrectionist or a drug cartel. Your take on this?
I mean, sometimes, no. I'm like, it depends on what you shoplifted. If it was like, obviously, if it was any Trump merch, that's like 30 years to life right there. You just can't do that. No, obviously, these are folks who, again, come to this country. They often work incredibly hard. We're going to go into, we have another segment coming up where we compare immigrants and Donald Trump. So I think that's really important. But I just want to, let's just name the elephant in the room.
Please.
Joe Biden was not better than Donald Trump on immigration by much. In fact, it was I feel like Joe Biden's immigration policies were very much akin to his foreign policies when it comes to Gaza or Israel, in that it was shades better, but not a different color. Not Joe Biden continued things like Title 42, which prevented asylum seekers from getting from having their cases heard in this country based on a global pandemic. Joe Biden believed the pandemic was real. Donald Trump didn't. So there's a difference there. But like largely, Biden did not make a big enough move away from some of the policies of Donald Trump himself, and certainly the Democratic Party writ large. And I think maybe we'll go into this. We could go into this now. We've been jumbled here, but Democrats writ large have not created a narrative or a policy platform that is radically different than a Republican approach to the border or to immigration. I'm old enough to remember truly when the Gang of 8, the Gang of 10 back in 2015, Republicans were working
deep cut, Francesca.
Deep cut. And I'm not saying that I'm old enough to remember sort of, ironically, where it was okay to think about a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people here in this country, the many millions who seek asylum or just immigrate every single, year. And as soon as Donald Trump came along and said, no, build a wall, they all ran to the right. The media helped him do that. Jake Tapper, first Republican primary debate, he said, what do you think about Trump's wall? What do you think, Ted Cruz, about Trump's wall? What do you think, Rubio, about Trump's wall? These were Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were two people that were working on something like immigration reform. But the media allowed the Overton window about how cruel we could get to expand and move so far to the right. So this is on the media. This is on Democrats.
Well, look, I'm old enough to remember nearly every election, every presidential election, going back to Bill Clinton. Democrats have always been attacked by Republicans for being soft on crime, right? For being weak. And what did Democrats do, folks? What did even Joe Biden do that he had to apologize for, right? The crime bill, mandatory minimums, just destroyed generations of folks, right? And on two issues, Democrats have always veered to the right during every election to prove that they're tough on security, right? Immigration and crime. Who does that affect the most? Black communities, people, POC immigrant communities, right? And now you're seeing, as we just saw, that Donald Trump is doing the most blatantly unconstitutional act in trying to end birthright citizenship as enshrined, folks, in the 14th Amendment, right? He is going after immigrants. He is going after, doesn't matter if you're undocumented, doesn't matter if you're here, H-1B fight between the richest man on earth who might or might not have done a Nazi salute. It was a Nazi salute. And Steve Bannon, right? You would think that there is an opening here, Francesca, for Democrats to be like, you know what? We can win over a lot of communities. We can protect these communities. We can show folks that we have different values. We just lost in an election where so many people literally just stayed at home because they said, you know what? I'm not excited. Yeah. So what are we going to do? Let us bear hug Liz Cheney. In addition to bear hugging Liz Cheney, let us sign on to the Laken Riley Act. Not one of us, not two of us, not three of us, not four of us, 46 Democrats, 46 House Democrats and 12 Senate Democrats. And this is, I'm quoting Prem Thakur, who was supposed to join us, but Prem got injured in a basketball game. Prem, feel better. And the fact that you can still play basketball, respect.
Balling that hard.
Balling
too hard.
Yeah, my ACL would just tear. All right. But this is Prem's tweet. With the help of 12 Senate Democrats and 46 House Democrats, an act that steps on due process and threatens migrants will be the first bill Donald Trump signs in his return. Your thoughts, Francesca?
I mean, it's wild that this is how rudderless the Democratic Party is that they're giving this Congress a win. I mean, they might not have had the votes, obviously, to stop it, but that they're giving him a win on this Laken Riley Act. And Laken Riley, I mean, obviously, it's awful what happened to her, a nursing student who was killed by someone who was an undocumented immigrant who apparently shoplifted. No one is saying that this was not a heinous act, but it is using an outlier case to go after all migrants
That's
for a charge. Sorry, not even a charge, a suspicion of shoplifting. So you don't have to be convicted. You don't even have to have a formal charge. It is a suspicion that you might have shoplifted or some sort of equivalent, violation, right? Any kind of traffic thing. Imagine that. And so this is again, to go back to what Donald Trump said, it's basically, do they look like they're an undocumented immigrant? And is there any difference in the MAGA mind between an undocumented immigrant and just a criminal in general? And so, when you see, Ruben Gallego, who we thought, was going to do things a little bit different. You see Ruben Gallego voting for something like this. It is really, really disappointing. And there's no excuse for it.
Richie Torres, Fetterman, and then just not those three. I want to repeat, 46 House Democrats have now made people so unsafe. Shoplifting, folks. This is something shameful. This is something that, on our first show, which was, only 2 days ago. My God, I'm on the wave planet of Interstellar, Francesca. That's how it feels like, right? This is what's happened, folks. They're literally bending the knee, and we promised y'all we would not kiss anyone's knee, right? We don't bend the knee to anyone, whether
I'm sorry, but like Ruben Gallego, I'm sorry. The reason I get on him is because he's a senator, because he's from Arizona, and because he's Latino, right? And so he's saying he's selling out, ostensibly parts of his community and constituency, in order to, again, give the right red meat. They don't care if you shoplift. They don't care if you jaywalked. This is not about crime. This is about simply having any pretense to stop you, detain you, and deport you. So when you give an inch, they take a million miles. Ruben Gallego was the guy who on Jan 6, where everyone was all cheering because he was like, I'm not going to leave the Capitol because this is an insurrection and this is a coup. I know what that looks like. We got to stay. And you're like, yeah, and just kind of like resistance libs were like, hell yeah, we love Ruben Gallego. And of course, love anyone, who effectively goes against Kirsten Sinema. But this ain't it.
This ain't it. And I want to go back full circle. Donald Trump said that he's going to go after those people who look like they could be trouble. And these people now are, like you said, these undocumented immigrants, these immigrants who did everything right. They're the ones in trouble. Refugees who were literally, they had their plane ticket. Guess what? They're not coming here. And Franklin Graham, who sat there and compared Donald Trump to Moses. I don't know if you saw that clip, Francesca, but they said, he went against the woke bishop, who was our hero of the week, our hero of the day, who, actually said the words of Jesus. If Jesus was actually resurrected, he'd probably be canceled by the GOP for being a woke socialist. And he said, I can't believe she politicized it. And then they asked him, yeah, but you support some of these refugee services that resettle these Christian refugees. Did you know that they're included? And he goes, oopsie, what? But the people who could be trouble are these folks that Francesca mentioned, right? These folks, shoplifting, and not even convicted folks. It's important. We want to stress it again. Just charged, suspicion of. But the people that Donald Trump likes, right? And by the way, he does this, by the way, folks, if you remember, because he wants to crack down on drugs and the drug cartels and the fentanyl coming from the South, right? There's a big problem, right? He talked about it for the past 4 years. Well, Francesca, would you be shocked and surprised that he just gave a pardon to Ross Ulbricht, a man who was in jail on quote-unquote kingpin charges because he was the creator of Silk Road. For folks who don't know what Silk Road is, it was literally the dark web on the internet where you can engage in drug trafficking, sex trafficking, child porn, and assassinations. It was an online hub for cocaine, fentanyl, and all the rest, but it was the first place where Bitcoin could be used and traded as a currency. And these Bitcoin boys and a lot of libertarians see Ross, despite everything I just said, as their hero. They gave a lot of money to Donald Trump. So while Donald Trump is going after the wrong kind of people who have my skin tone on the Family Guy chart, Ross Ulbricht literally responsible for creating an international drug marketplace on the internet
He's
now free.
literally bringing the drugs and the crime. It's a life sentence. A life sentence. And he's out. That's insane to me. So again, no, please, we must go after the tamale lady who is trying to support a family. We must go after the people who are picking our vegetables and our crops and are responsible for the fact that we have, strawberries in January. Thank you. Like, I mean, please, it is so clear what this is about. I do, but maybe before we leave the Laken Riley stuff, I do want to say that some Democrats still have a fight. And so let's just watch this from AOC.
I want the American people to know what is in this bill. Because in the guise and in the wake of tragedy, we are seeing a fundamental erosion of our civil rights. In this bill, if a person is so much as accused of a crime, if someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court, without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty. Without being found guilty of a crime, they will be rounded up. That is what is inside this bill, a fundamental suspension of a core American value.
Amen. I mean, look, I think I said this on Tuesday. The director of communications for the Democrats, it's not AOC, folks. It's Debbie Dingell, this young upstart from Michigan, a spry 71-year-old. In the past 2 weeks, Francesca, have you heard a lot from Debbie Dingell?
No.
If you will, saying much of, reflecting much of the righteous rage and anger that you just heard from AOC?
No.
No,
not at all.
And
do we need a new segment? Do we need like a dingle all the way segment? Because we could do it.
A dingle off.
A dingle off, dingle all the way. We'll workshop it.
It could have been also, folks, there was a choice for those who don't follow in the weeds and aren't masochists like me and Francesca. It was between Jasmine Crockett, House Democrat, fantastic. You've seen her. She's gone viral. Young Black woman to be the director of communications, or Debbie Dingell. Jasmine Crockett is so dope. She'll go on Instagram. I saw her before she was about to take off on a plane. She just took her iPhone and went on Joy Reid, and she was doing these talking.
I know. I love it.
So instead of that fighter spirit, we got Debbie Dingell.
Instead of the woman who brought us bad built, bleach blonde, butch body.
Yeah,
we got Debbie Dingell. Now, look, I don't know. Maybe Debbie Dingell's got some hits. All right, they're in the Dingle All the Way album.
I haven't heard any Dingle bangers in the past 4 years, but that's the type of righteous fight. That's the type of anger. That's the type in the comments. I'm following you all. This takes me back to my AJAM stream days where I used to be the co-producer. Everyone remember those shows? I used to be listening to the conversation, listening to the comments. That's the type of fight I think that most of you, and thank you all for joining. It's fantastic. More and more people are coming on. We see you. We're going to highlight you, ask your questions, your comments. We're going to highlight them. Hopefully, if we have some time, we're going to interact with you. It's a growing community. But that's the type of rage. It's a righteous rage, Francesca, because human beings, communities, families are under attack. The ones who look like they could be trouble. But there are some immigrants also who should be careful because they too could be trouble. Because the last thing, I want to talk about this before I pivot to a good section on immigrants. The good news on immigrants is bigots aren't nuanced, folks. They can't tell the difference, right? They won't be like, oh, Wajahat, you're a Pakistani Muslim. I was interested in beating up the Iraqi Christian. You can move. They don't care. We all look the same. The first hate crime after 9/11, a few days after 9/11, people don't know, was against Balbir Sodhi Singh, a Sikh Indian immigrant who was a gas station owner in Mesa, Arizona. And the white supremacist killed him because he wanted revenge against the 19 foreign Muslim hijackers who brought down the two towers. Bigots aren't nuanced. So the people who are complicit, the people who support this, the people who think that they will be safe, think about that. And that brings me to Usha Vance. So our good friend, and I think current person who pays our bills for this show, Mehdi Hassan, had a fantastic tweet earlier today.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Usha, and I was like, what?
She's like, what? No. So obviously Usha vets wouldn't retroactively lose citizenship if this is constitutional. Speaking about Trump's executive order to ban birthright citizenship, if it was enforced. But out of interest, were Usha's parents U.S. citizens or green card holders when she was born in 1986? Did anyone ask them? Francesca?
I mean, yes, the answer is I don't care. No. No, but truly, like, yeah, it's okay, two things. Number one, it's okay when they do it. That's it. It's okay when they do it. They can have their family members come over, doesn't matter if they're here legally or illegally, because it's them who's doing it. Peter Thiel practices a gay lifestyle, is gay, totally fine, but he funnels all of his money into anti-gay psychos like JD Vance and his family, right? So that is perfectly legitimate. It is okay when they do it. They have nixed themselves out of the moral equation. So it actually doesn't matter. And the second thing I'm going to say is, I gotta say, in the grand scheme of whether I like want to get on whether Usha's family was here, and had a green card when she was born, that's like some Nick Fuentes stuff. So it's important for us to point out the hypocrisy, which I think is great. But at the same time, you have a very serious right wing that's like, hey, why is Usha's name Usha?
No,
why isn't she white? Why?
No,
so her kids
right.
are half-breeds? Maybe we should give them second-class citizenship. I mean, that's not unrealistic, and they're talking about it.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, because you and I tracked it. I know Mehdi tracked it. We talked about it. Is that once it was revealed that JD's wife was Usha, and he has two biracial kids, and he was wearing a shalwar kameez and doing some of these Indian rituals, Nick Fuentes and other white nationalists who make up the MAGA base lost their minds.
Right.
Rachel, I highlighted her comment, right? I feel bad for her kids. Folks, if you don't think they'll come after you, there's a recurring theme on today's show, right? Oh, it's the bad immigrants. Oh, it's the one who look bad. Oh, it's the darkies, the browns, the undocumented. I'm the good one. It's only been 4 days, folks. It's only been 4 days, and look who they're going after. But I said I will end this segment on a positive note, and I always try to bring these facts. What's common to us isn't common to everyone, Francesca. It's just you get to know each other a little bit. I am the child of immigrants. My parents came here from Pakistan, thanks to the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act. My parents gave 0 Fs about me integrating. Proof, they named me Wajahat. They literally gave 0 Fs. And they didn't teach me English, because who needs English in the United States of America? I was born in the Bay Area. You were born in the Bay Area. I learned English, folks, thanks to a DI program called English as a Second Language. I went to school. I only knew 3 phrases of English. True story. I was 6 years old. Shut up, because my mother used to say shut up to me. Idiot, because my mom used to follow up shut up with idiot. And pasgerio, because I couldn't say spaghetti. Shut up, idiot. Pasgerio. I learned English major from UC Berkeley, live in this country, I got kids, live in the American dream.
Do you need to talk about this with like a professional watch, or we?
How about you? Before I bring up this stat about how immigrants really are, tell me a little bit about yourself, because I know you're a child of immigrants.
Well, my parents met in English, but my mom is from China and my dad's from Italy. My dad came over here on a work visa through IBM. My mom has been in this country since she was 10. So their common language was English. So English is the language of, well, divorce ultimately. So it's really about divorce. But yes, yeah, I mean, these are kinds of the programs. My parents worked in tech, so like similar. But
Francesca's life is, this is proof that immigrants should stay with immigrants and the whites should stay with whites.
Just stick to your own kind, okay? And don't give me like a ridiculously Italian name. I am Chinese, damn it. All right.
Yeah,
I'm on Xiaohongshu and everything, guys. I'm there. Follow me.
I love, sometimes I'll admit that before we're getting on our calls to go through the show, I do say it to myself when no one's looking, Fiorentini, and it makes me very happy. It makes me very happy.
It really puts you in the mood for pasta.
Before we pivot to another marginalized community that is being targeted, and people who think that they'll be safe have thrown them under the bus. Folks, these are 3 ways that people like me and Francesca, children of immigrants, undocumented immigrants, are actually different, and I would say better than Donald Trump. Number 1.
Wait, we don't have graphic for that. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah.
The first way, the immigrants. are better than Donald Trump. Immigrants actually pay their taxes, unlike Donald Trump. A study says that undocumented immigrants paid almost $100 billion in taxes. Thank you, immigrants, for helping give money to the federal government that, doles it out to FEMA during national disasters. Number two, immigrants are actually a net positive to the local and national economy. What they don't do is bankrupt casinos and blow up the deficit like Donald Trump. And number three, bring it full circle. Unlike Donald Trump, immigrants, foreign-born individuals, actually commit fewer crimes than those born in the United States.
Yes. Over and over and over again, we have to say those things. What was it? What was his 2019 something 2020 tax return? $750. This kills me every time. But here come the Trump tax cuts. Are you a billionaire? You're in luck. Simu Liu, the Canadian actor, has an excellent video. Maybe we'll play it next Tuesday, where he was like, I don't need a tax cut. I'm happy to pay tax cuts. I don't want a tax cut. I'm going to donate the money.
Francesca, we have Auntie Lou who just said LGBTQ is under attack too. You should be our editor because... Take it away, Francesca.
Well, we are going to, before we get to that.
Oh.
We do have a little, a break where we stop making sense and start talking nonsense. And that is specifically talking nonsense on Piers Morgan Uncensored, which is a show that Wajahat Ali and myself occasionally appear on, mostly because we hate ourselves and we sometimes like to speak in fragments of sentences, which is the only way you're allowed to speak on that show. And Wajahat, a while ago, maybe a year ago, you'd have people who were defending Jan 6. Oh, they were given harsh sentences, or they were tourists, or was Antifa, or it was an undercover FBI sting. But rarely have I seen a panel in which an actual insurrectionist who was in the Capitol on Jan 6 is on the panel as well. And so can you just tell me, because you actually were on Piers Morgan today, and you found yourself on a panel with none other than the QAnon shaman, or shaman, according to Piers' accent is shaman.
If I may, can I play the clip first?
Do it.
And to Wajahat, good luck with your new podcast, which is you and one of my other favourites, Francesca. I'm sure that will be one of the, how can I put this delicately, one of the least partisan podcasts in the history of podcasts. I look forward to it.
So first of all, thank you, Piers, for that great shout out for our show. I was on a panel with the QAnon Shaman. I was supposed to be on with someone else, and then they told me he was there. And real quick, we can laugh about it, and we can talk about the absurd idiocracy and hellscape that is America right now, that I'm sharing a panel with a unrepentant insurrectionist, by the way. If you watch that 1 hour clip, it came out today, the 1 hour show. He says,
is he the guy he's the one in the Batman shirt? That's just a guess, wild guess. Batman shirt and American flag background. Okay, cool.
But he has evolved. He took off the Viking hat, and he has evolved because he says he doesn't believe in QAnon anymore. He only believes in Q. And so here I am sharing a panel with an insurrectionist who is completely unrepentant, who went on X and said he's going to buy a mother effing boatload of guns. And I'm supposed to debate him, which I did. I think I held my own. But what is so sobering is that the other dude, Vinny, have you ever debated Vinny from
my God. Oh, God. This like real paint chip energy. I'm just like...
It's Ren and Stimpy energy. His like neck just bulges all the time, right? So what was once considered extreme, Francesca, just a year ago, these people, if you watch that 1 hour show, all in with the January 6th insurrection, all in with the conspiracies, all in with the lies. And Piers Morgan, because he sees where the wind is blowing, platformed him, normalized him, and thanked him. And what's the cost? The cost, like we talked about on Tuesday, is that these people, who I call Trump's red shirts, realize if you put a MAGA hat on, you can choke someone to death on a subway, you could shoot someone at a BLM rally.
That's right.
You can insurrect, you can try to assassinate, you can sexually abuse. It's all good. And who gets targeted?
Yeah, I mean, Congress in this case, gets targeted. The vice president got targeted in this case. I just think it's incredible, you know, right after that clip, you say something about having guns and being armed because I believe, while he was in the Capitol building, what was the quote that he said, that he wanted to like bring the guns out? And he said to you, Waj, well, it's better that I have them than you. And so he also then admitted that he was going to like arm himself again. And again, this is like, you know, what Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes is trying to do, is not just get clemency, but a full pardon, so that he can once again like build an arsenal of weapons. And what are those going to be?
Yeah,
right. Which he did. So yeah, it's wild, but you know, yeah, I don't know, Waj. For me, I don't know if I'm gonna do Piers that much in the future. It's only really for the clips. It's only to have a little fun. It's only to have fun.
Yeah, and you know,
and at certain point, you're gonna be doxxed by these fools, and that's not gonna be fun anymore. It's gonna be very real.
My mom said the same thing to me. My mom said, "Beta," my immigrant mom, and I'm going to translate from Urdu, "Is it worth it anymore?" Especially once and she also said, you know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because people don't realize, Francesca and me and anyone who I hope is intellectually consistent and stands up for the truth, once you go on and debate them, especially with a smile on your face, and you defeat them or you get some licks in, they come after us. And they're not only coming after us. As I debated the QAnon shaman today, who was normalized, in the New York Times, Representative Sarah McBride, who is transgender, said that there's a target on her and she is under threat.
Yeah. And let's turn now to that attack on trans people, again, as promised by Project 2025, and just the little spur in the boot of the Republican Party, the wrong 1%, the trans community, starting with this.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Okay, that's also not what gender is. That's male and female is sex, you dum-dum. If you're going to do bigotry, do it right.
Do it right.
These are the people who keep going, well, what is a woman? You know, like, come on. All right.
Well, Francesca, tying it to the last one, anytime you go on Piers, they ask you, right, how many genders are there? How many genders are there?
Yes. No, the idea is that apparently trans women, let's be real, because trans men are somehow never part of the equation, even though they do exist. Hello. But that trans women are some sort of threat to cis women. And nothing could be farther than the truth. And yet, one of the first executive orders that Donald Trump did pass was saying that there are only two genders. And the title was, as a feminist, truly disgusting. As an intersectional trans ally feminist, the title, Defending Women from Gender Ideology and Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government, except when it has to do with, you know, the H5N1 or the H1N1 or truly any pandemic. There's nothing biological about a pandemic.
No.
So that is again, this executive order. It defines female or male. It says it defines it at conception, but it's really funny because actually everyone is female at conception, or all zygotes are female until maybe 6 or 7 weeks. So just, again, scientifically wrong.
I just want to say, for the record, I was the most masculine zygote of all time.
Dude, I super lifted while I drank that mud tea stuff when I was a zygote.
Creatine zygote.
I was an alpha zygote. And, you know, all jokes aside, this is clearly putting a target on the backs of trans Americans, trans children, people who are intersex, a total erasure of their biological reality. It also requires people who are non-binary, because it does require your IDs, passports, any documents to apparently reflect your sex at birth. It also strips Title IX protections, which is part of, you know, our education system that protects people from discrimination based on sex or your sexuality. It strips those protections from the trans community. This is the world that we're living in now.
Can you because you were telling me, and I think it's important, if you could share that right before we went on, right now, and this happens in any country where a marginalized community is seen as a threat, people assume there are in far numerous numbers than they actually are. So in America right now, people think that trans people, who are like 1% max of the population, are like 20%. Muslims, who are like 1.5% at 25%. Jews are like 30%. No, only 2%.
Criminal migrants, once again, disproportionate, like in very, very small compared to people who are citizens and do crimes.
Can you share with me the stats you were sharing on the trans communities?
Right. So one of the biggest obsessions of the right is about trans youth. And they're constantly thinking, I mean, simultaneously, they say that they believe in parental rights. But of course, if you're the parent of a trans child, you have no rights. And there's a new study out. ABC had an article about this not too long ago, actually, that shows that out of 5 million cases that they looked at for gender nonconforming youth, that only 0.1% were on any form of puberty blockers or gender affirming care, right? And again, no one under the age of 12. So we're being told by Rogan and others in the manosphere that like all these experiments are being done on children. No one under the age of 12 in 5 million cases that they looked at actually received puberty blockers. And of the people who did, it was 0.11%. In other words, 15 children or minors out of 100,000. So that's who we're going after.
And here's another stat. There are more anti-trans bills than there are trans athletes, professional athletes.
Of course.
If you go on right-wing media, and just real quick, I want to show folks this. Just look at this. Is just 2025, folks. They have, I remember when it was the anti-Sharia bill, when that was the threat. Remember Sharia?
Oh, Sharia. What happened to Sharia? Good old Sharia.
Yeah, and there was a good line by Reza Aslan. I'll never forget. He goes, "It's a solution in search of a problem." And Republicans spent $140 million on anti-trans ads. I watch football, and every Sunday I used to see them say, "Donald Trump is for all of you. Kamala is for they, them." And it worked. And it worked on a lot of suburban parents, a lot of Democrats, a lot of center-left folks, a lot of, I'll be honest, a lot of Muslim families. It worked like gangbusters. And I kept telling them, and I just want to say this, Francesca and I are from the Bay Area. I went to UC Berkeley. I went to San Francisco a lot. San Francisco, before I think West Hollywood was like the epicenter for LGBTQ communities. I'm lucky enough, Francesca, to set foot in 6 countries. Okay. When you go in 6 countries and you're a middle-aged man like me, you have to like pee all the time. I've gone to bathroom. Never once in my life.
Is it just pee?
Yeah, just pee. I can only do the number one.
Is it poo-poo?
No. That at home. And then I want to say this.
That at home, on time. I'm sorry.
Never in my life has a trans person ever popped out and said boo. Never in my life has a trans person ever hurt me. And this all originated, and I want to get to this clip from Laverne because we want to hear from a transgender person. I'm glad you found it. But I want to say this. They first started this off in Virginia 3.5 years ago with Glenn Youngkin. I tried my best to write articles. I said, this is exactly what they did to Muslims. I gave Democrats the playbook. I researched this. I wrote about it in a think tank report, right? I said exactly what they did to Muslims. They're doing with the trans. It's going to work like gangbusters. For the love of God, please respond to it. They went after the kids. Think about the kids. I got 2 kids in the Virginia elementary school system. I dropped them off. I've never once in my life, friends who are watching, ever said, God, will a transgender person get them? What I have thought about, Francesca, is, my God, what will happen if there's a mass shooting? Sorry for my rant. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the actual thing that is harming children. And the actual thing that's harming women is our inability to exercise our bodily autonomy, our inability to get abortions, to say nothing of if you're pregnant and in a red state, you could be left bleeding out because you have an obstetric emergency that is not being attended to because the doctors in the ER are too afraid of the lawyers and the politicians going after them. So miss me with all the trans stuff. But let's hear, because on my show, the Bituation Room podcast, which everyone should be subscribed to and listening to and watching, the actor Laverne Cox, who's so wonderful, and she's just such a breath of fresh air, we were talking about this bathroom bill inside of Congress. As you know, Nancy Mace floated this bill that says, trans people cannot use the bathroom of their gender. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson effectively incorporated that into a broader House rules and regulations. So it didn't pass that particular bill, but it was effectively passed. And so even just today, our favorite Lauren Boebert apparently had a freak out that there was a guy, in her words, guy in the bathroom. A reporter followed up and she was like, nah, false alarm, it's cool. But here's what Laverne said because I think a lot of people, there are many people out there who say, okay, well, maybe it's just bathrooms. Maybe it's just locker rooms. Maybe it's just sports when it comes to trans people. Maybe if we bar them from some aspects, and I could possibly see a case to do that, not me personally, but this is what they say. I could see a case. Maybe if I were an Olympic swimmer, I wouldn't want, a trans woman competing against me. Who knows? Whatever the reason is. Listen to Laverne Cox explains how that creates what she's calling a permission structure to discriminate and prevent against trans people from being in all walks of life.
It's so crucially important to understand that this capitulating to this and not addressing it head on creates a permission structure and normalizes discriminating against trans people and excluding us from public space. When there's no pushback towards our humanity, a pushback around understanding that this not only affects trans women, it affects all women. Then it's like, how is this enforced? Are people standing outside bathrooms like saying, wait, you're not a woman? Historically, so many women who are cisgender, who are non-transgender, who are assigned female at birth and identify as women, but may have a short haircut, may be a little butch, have been called out in bathrooms. We're seeing this happen more and more.
Exactly. And who knows? Of course, I'm sure Lauren Boebert saw someone with a short haircut in the congressional restroom, or maybe, Waj, honestly, maybe she's just staking out there. Like, who's creepier, a trans person using the bathroom or a person lying in wait in the bathroom to see if there's a trans person in the bathroom? You like to give me options. I'll give you that option.
Creepy as F, as the kids say. And one point before we move on to some hope. We'll always try to.
We got to wrap with hope.
I want to remind you all that Donald Trump is a convicted criminal. I want to remind you all that Donald Trump had a rich daddy who paid a doctor allegedly money to give him bone spurs that made him somehow just conveniently get out of the draft. He never served. And in fact, Donald Trump has said that his personal Vietnam was avoiding STDs. I say all this because people might not know that transgender individuals serve in our army. There are service members. And Donald Trump repealed a rule allowing trans people to serve in the military, discharging 15,000 transgender service members in the military, which would, by the way, cost us almost $1 billion, $960 million. I always say white supremacy is ultimately self-destructive and stupid. And a lot of the stuff that we said today, folks, I just want you to know that we say with some levity for the sake of catharsis, but we take it seriously. We talked about his attacks. It hasn't even been a week on the undocumented, on refugees, birthright citizenship. He's gone against Capitol Hill police. He's praised the January 6th violent insurrectionists. He's let go of the Silk Road kingpin, right? He's attacking transgender people. He's attacking intersex people, non-binary folks, transgender arms people, and the service members. And so I don't swear because I have 3 children, but our hero.
First of all, by the way, that is a real reason to swear. I don't understand how you have 3 children and not just swear constantly. I have one, and it's like always. So
it's me trying to be the good Muslim, but there is, and this is thanks to Francesca, there is a hero of today, not necessarily for all his politics, a Danish politician who expresses, I believe, many of the sentiments of our community that is watching with us. Listen to him.
Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland have been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, fuck off.
Mwah. And with that, this has been our second show. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video you're watching right now. The elves in the algorithm apparently like that a lot. Please subscribe to Zeteo. Please have a notification. We're on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please subscribe to Francesca's great show, The Bituation Room. Please follow her, Francesca. Shamelessly promote yourself, please.
Yeah, youtube.com/FrannyFio, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Yes, ring the bell right now, though. That little bell that tells you when America Unhinged is going live. And Waj, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Blue Sky, and you can also find me on my Substack, The Left Hook, where we do not believe in paywalls.
And until Tuesday, keep your screws tight, everybody, and we'll see you next time.